Happy Wednesday. What's going on? Hey, welcome back, everybody. Happy Wednesday to you. We're here on a Wednesday. I'll explain why in just a second. But in order for me to do so, please tap the like button. Jump in the chat. Let me know where you're chiming in from. It's good to see you. Thanks for giving me the night off on Friday. I needed it. And the reason we're here on Wednesday and not Friday this week is, most of you guys are familiar. I still wear the uniform, and this Friday I have to report to a school. But it is one of those, one of them types that I only have to go to once a month. So it's not going to take away too much, but on certain weeks we're going to have to shift focus for the live streams to Wednesdays. This being the first one of those. Last Friday, I had a weekend full of soccer and kids' birthday parties, and I had to start getting ready. I have to inventory 16 years worth of stuff because they expect me to show up with things like a canteen can. You have any idea how hard it is to find a canteen can you were issued 16 years ago? 17 this year, actually. Welcome back. How we doing? Let's check in on the chat. Good to see you. It's not my birthday, but thank you. Hi. What's going on? We got a good show tonight. It's going to be all footage. No talking points, none of that stuff. We're going to be looking at a lot of footage tonight. We're going to see footage from Sudan. We're going to see some footage from Myanmar. We're going to see a lot of footage out of Bakhmut. We're going to talk a little bit about whatever this pending counteroffensive operation is from Ukraine. We'll see a little bit of footage from that too. And then, of course, we'll do our top 10. There's a couple funnies in there, but most of what we're going to see is war tonight. Hey, TJ, I see you out there. Nice beard, man. Yeah, it's all going away here in just like a day. So I'm squeezing every little bit I can get out of keeping the beard. Got the canteen, don't have the cup. I don't have either, if I'm being honest. I got the canteen case, like the pouch, but I don't have the canteen or the cup. I don't know. 17 years, 2 deployments later, it's gone. Get over it. Send me a new one. Write it off. White Claw time. I got my coffee. We're good. Washington State crew, let me know where you're at. Where are you chiming in from, guys? Welcome in from Sweden. I see ya. Ask for a new canteen for your birthday. What's funny is I've been in so long that the gear that I have is a mixture of BDU, ACU, and the new OCPs, right? So I've got everything, like my wet weather gear, for example, is all, woodland pattern. my poncho and poncho liner are woodland pattern. I've got my ruck is ACU, my medium ruck is OCP, but then I've got a whole I'm just gonna it's gonna look all ate up, but that's what I'm issued. That's what they told me to bring. I'm not allowed to bring any of my own stuff. Anyway, Peru, Minnesota, Denver, Maryland, welcome in. How we doing, Ronnie? I'm always good, man. Some of the days suck, but the grand scheme's gonna be just fine. Always good. Stebbin, thanks for the 5. What happens if you lose something? Got to buy it. Yeah, there's a list. So for those that weren't in the military or for those that haven't gone through the ETS process, what ends up happening is there's a list of stuff that you've been issued throughout the years in the military. And there are some columns on there. And in one of those columns is whether or not it's a turn-in item, something that you have to turn in when you leave or depart the service. There's a lot of shit on there that I'm missing. Let's just put it that way. I went through it about a year and a half ago at this point, and yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. It's good to see you, though. Like I said, we're going to be jumping right into the footage tonight. Once again, for those that are just joining us, thanks for giving me the day off Friday. This past Friday, we're here on a Wednesday night because I'm going to be stepping away out of town on travel Friday. Still wear the uniform, so I have to attend a school. My report time is literally the time that we would start the stream. But I want to kick us right off with some footage. I'm going to shake things up really quick. We're not going to lead off with our top 10 videos tonight. What we're going to do is we're going to lead off with a section of videos that I went through the website that we have posted recently that I think are relevant and pertinent to current global situation. All right, we're obviously going to be leading off with, some footage coming out of Bakhmut. We're going to be talking a little bit about that footage. We're going to see two perspectives of fighting in Bakhmut, some really intense footage, both from a Russian perspective and from a Ukrainian perspective. And these are relatively long videos, 11 minutes, excuse me, 8 minutes, 8 minutes, 40 seconds, and 11 minutes, respectively, Russian, Ukrainian. But it's going to show you two different perspectives and what, you know, they're seeing and dealing with on a day-to-day basis. We're also going to see some footage of some pretty major sized elements that Ukraine is putting in place for, you know, some form of an offensive, counteroffensive. I've actually had a conversation with a couple of folks, a couple of our friends that we've had here on the show about that counteroffensive. And if you think we in the information space know very little, we know just as much as those, at least most, on the ground do. He knew very little. It was very off the record type conversation, and it was surprising. It was surprising to say the least. But we're also going to see some footage from Sudan. So for those that aren't familiar, the RSF and the Sudanese military picked a fight with each other. If I'm not mistaken, the RSF shot first, but that situation's a little bit interesting because technically that would be considered infighting. We'll talk about that when we get there. And then, of course, we're going to see our, you know, a bunch of kids running around with 3D printed guns fighting their government in Myanmar. But effectively, that's what we're going to be taking a look at tonight. After that, we'll get into our top 10. Hello, Ryan from Southwestern Australia. Well, welcome in. How are you? ACU, you meant UCP. Yeah. The OCP, UCP. Yeah, I screwed that up. Let's get into the footage, though. So we're going to go right out of the gate here with those two longer perspective videos that came out of, or that are coming out of Bakhmut. Bakhmut, from an envelopment perspective, hasn't really progressed much further, but what has, rather than envelopment, is Russia has taken the fight very heavily to the streets rather than continuing that envelopment around the northwestern and southwestern edges of the city. What we're going to see here is first-person perspective Wagner footage as they're fighting their way through Bakhmut, specifically to take a large building that, if we understand the reports correctly, to be a garment factory. Some pretty intense footage coming up for you guys right now, as soon as all my stuff works. There we go. Nailed it. Now, something that should be, you know, to a certain extent obvious that I need to just make sure that I state is this is high production, state-sponsored footage coming from the Russian side. Just important to note. Okay, going back.
Будем двигаться дальше, продвигаться. Снимай!
Now, the obvious target that you guys are going to see here is that yellow-colored large building. So you're gonna see that a few times, and if we understand correctly, that's some form of a garment factory. it being such a large, still somewhat intact building relative to the surroundings would be a pretty critical point.
Нравится работа?
Конечно.
Самая лучшая работа в мире.
Да, самое лучшее в мире. Работать на колде, на устройстве. ЧВК Вагнер рулит.
Я говорю, поддерживали наши штурмовые отряды, которые сейчас продвигаются, уже в здании находятся, дабы они не смогли никуда не выбежать и точно так же подавить огневые точки противника, отработаемым огневыми средствами, как минометы, пулеметы крупнокалиберных. Также у нас накидывают из сапога. То есть всячески поддерживаем огневыми средствами и продвигаемся вперед.
Циркулярно. Наблюдаем, откуда работать, наблюдаем, откуда, выявляем огневые точки.
Ну как обстановка?
Обстановка замечательная, погода прекрасная, работаем всем, чем можем. Работаем на подавление, группы уже заходят.
So I see a lot of questions in the chat. Where's the return fire? There's probably not any return fire. There's actually quite a bit, and that just might be a volume thing on my side to your side. What you're probably not going to hear is a lot of those whizzes and snaps that you might be used to hearing, because they are indoors. You know, the majority of what we're watching here is taking place indoors. So what would have would normally be whizzing by or snapping is impacting buildings. Something to think about.
Давай. Пошла ответка, да?
Они дебилы. Я не понимаю, что они тут держатся. Мы все равно пройдем, все равно их всех разъебем. Потому что мы Вагнер. Вагнер это сила. И у нас нет препятствий на пути. Мы будем идти дальше, двигаться и будем уничтожать. Вагнер сила.
Я не знаю тоже, за что они могут держаться здесь. Это бесполезно, ребята. Бегите, пока есть возможность. Пока вам ее дают, бегите.
Обнаружены документы.
So the remainder of this video, which we won't watch, is essentially them reviewing their spoils, if you were, the position that they had just taken. So, you know, for all intents and purposes, it was a successful assault. What we're going to see next, like I told you, we'd see two perspectives from Bakhmut. We're going to see other footage tonight from Bakhmut. But what's interesting is the length and the additional context that comes with the length for each of these videos, plus the different perspectives in how the situation in Bakhmut is playing out for each quote-unquote side, if you will. The next one's going to be, we just, again, watched a successful Wagner assault of that garment factory in Bakhmut. We're going to see one that essentially hit the wire today, over the last 24 to 48 at least, and we're going to see, it's going to be a successful defense of a trench line. And these are Ukrainians. More specifically, these are the Vinci wolves. Early in March, I want to say within the first week to week and a half of March, it hit the airwaves that a very young but very well-respected commander was killed in Ukraine. That was Vinci himself. These are his troops defending their trench line from advancing Russians.
10-15 метрів. Ой-ой. Ой-ой. Ой-ой.
I want to make a note before this gets too crazy, and I should have done this on the last one as well. War happens in this video. I would consider it to be not safe for work, and discretion is advised. It's going to be very close enemy visible. Going back.
Загинув. Да, братику. На війні буває саме так. Льоха, ти як? Льоха! Фу. Що делать,
Підари почне нас утранжають, то тут вологу б'ють. Як поняли, підари почне нас утранжають, то тут вологу б'ють.
Першу траншею, пацани.
Давай быстрее бомба.
Дві траншеї ще біля вас.
Де вони? Граната! Пацаны, вылезли! Вылезли! Убил, вылезли нахуй! Я! Пацаны, свои набросили, скажи, что вылезли, блядь! Давай, боевой порядок, сука! Правой траншея, пидоры! Пацаны, на брусер! Правая траншея! Правая траншея! Пацаны, ко мне один! Где Владос? Владос! Сюда один! Владос, сюда! Один сюда, блядь! Правую траншею, сука! Смотри, правой сюда, всех по правому полю. Вперед левее, блядь. Пацаны, он пидор. Прыгай туда. Где вот справа есть этот. Владос жив? Филя, я тихий, где пидоры, прием. Спокойно, перезарядились.
Слева тебя в поле, пидор, полуживотный. 10 метров слева, в поле, он дурак по вам стреляет.
Мы его минуснули, брат.
Он живой, он шевелился, кинь гранату.
Пацаны, слева пидор, один по право обходит. Ебаш. Контроль правой траншеи, видишь, ебаш. Давай, прыгай в ту яму, смотри траншею, в ту яму. В правой траншеи, пидоры, давай, ты отсюда тоже, правый фланг. Левые остались, контрольте вдвоем. Берегите БК, правый фланг, держим правую траншею. Спокойно, круговая, прямо почти никого, не стреляйте. Да. Давай, брат.
So I want to note something on this video. Something that was talked about pretty heavily early on in the war, from just a foundational perspective, is the NCO Corps, directing, controlling troops on the ground to be as effective as possible. What you're seeing here is an extremely effective NCO. You stay where you are, you cover that area, check your mags, check your ammo, check your buddy. I wanted to make sure that gets called out specifically. Let's jump back in.
Сюда, вон, пидоры бегут! Красава, блядь! Бегут! Правая траншея, блядь! Давай, взяли! Сюда один Владос! Стойте тут на позиции! О, пидор! Да, контроль, Владос, эту хуйню! На 12, пидор! Есть два есть! Прошло? Владос ползет! Хуй его знает, брат! Я его убил, тихо! Блядь! В канавы! Остаемся на позициях, держим круговую! Филя, я тихий, прием!
Приеме, братан, на приеме.
Сколько пидоров траншеи? На 12 есть у нас?
Траншеи, на 12, осталось одного человека, чтобы контролировал.
Владос, оставь Япчанку на 12 и все траншеи контролем. Беги, скажи пацанам, Япчанка на 12, все остальные траншею контролем. Крикни, что траншеи пидоры пацанам.
Траншея 3 часа.
Траншея, пацаны!
I see a question in the chat that I'd actually like to address. I'm trying not to stop this too much for you guys, but there's a question about whether or not these are Wagner. More than likely, yes, they're fighting Wagner, but there has been quite a bit of reporting lately that indicates that conventional Russian troops are starting to engage alongside Wagner at a higher rate than normal, including VDV, Russian Airborne.
Это наша посадка, пидорасы, блядь!
Блиндажей сидеть, артиллерии сильно много. Не надо в поле сидеть, не надо в посадках сидеть. Садись.
В блиндаж, Владос, в блиндаж! В блиндаж, Владос! Ты остался! Контроль 12, вы в блиндаж, пацаны, быстро! Ты в блиндаж! Быстро, блядь! Ты смотришь 12! Блиндаж, заряжайся! Сюда, Владос, быстро! Япчанка! Кто 300? Где Япчанка? Япчанка, контроль, вход! Ты видишь кого-то? А? Ты видишь кого-то?
Там на час был.
На час, пидор! Скажи Япчанке контролировать! Подайте патроны Нормана!
Я удав уже патрони Нормана.
Патрони Нормана у мене всі.
Есть магазин? Есть магазин дать, Владос? Давай магазин достань, блядь. Пацаны, держим траншею 12, сейчас будет работать арта. Фу, сука.
Япчанка, не стрелять в траншею, не стрелять в траншею, как принял?
Принял, тихий принял. Пацаны, в траншею не стрелять, контролем 12.
Стреляйте в траншею, не стреляйте в траншею.
Там нікого вже немає.
Плюс, смотрим 12, траншею не стреляем.
56-ка.
Наряжай магазины. Пустые магазины, у кого 5,56. Бомба, контролируй, чтобы они заряжали. Япчанка 12.
All right, let's come up. Let's chat about that for just a second. Those longer videos, we've started showing a few more of those, are and I know somebody's going to take me saying this the wrong way. That's the type of footage we like to show. It's not that we like to see it, it's that we like to show it. What you end up with, in most of the information space is small, like 15-second clips of that. There are numerous TikTok videos that got made out of this, and it really only shares just a small portion of the context and overarching information value that this provides. It helps you truly understand what defending a trench looks like. If I understand this situation correctly, which there's a likely chance I don't, but if I do understand it correctly, the Da Vinci Wolves, which is a Googleable unit, I recommend you go out and just do a quick Google search on who they are, their background. Their commander was, almost celebrity-esque in Ukraine to a certain perspective. They're defending at least the vicinity of one of the last roads into and out of Bakhmut. So it's such a critical function and job. Seeing the overarching context provided with all of that footage is something we like to do as much as possible. Now, I took a whole bunch of shit on Twitter earlier today because folks were being awesome and tagging me personally and us in stuff quite a bit, specifically this video. And once we realized that we were getting tagged in bits and pieces, we hunted around a little bit until we could find the full version of it. So it took us, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours to get this finally posted, and somebody said something akin to, you know, we're slow and I'm making too many TikToks with my wife. Priorities, man. But that's what I had for those 2 perspective videos I wanted to show you for Bakhmut. We're going to pause here because I've got some support coming in, and I need to say thank you for it. Turn the music on a little bit. Gunslinger, thank you for the 762, sir. Thanks for all you guys do for us. As always, happy not your birthday. Once again, not my birthday. Yeah, but thank you for the 762, man. Redbeard Actual, thanks for the 7 months as a member. Appreciate that very much. Stedman, thanks again for that $5. What happens if you lose something? Pay out of pocket. In the military, if you lose your stuff, yes, you'll end up paying out of pocket unless you can justifiably say that it was lost in the field or in official duties, more or less. Please do tap on the like button. It helps us out very much. I watched this 5 hours ago. Yeah, we're not a breaking news team, man. Okay, let's move on, though. We've got some more footage from the Bakhmut area that I wanted to share with you guys. We'll see even more once we get into the top 10 section. Again, we're still in the section of videos that I thought were interesting or pertinent, relevant. The reason I wanted to show you guys this one is just to see a close-up Konkurs Operator, ATGM, anti-tank guided missile being operated by Wagner. Oh man, come on guys. Anyway, this is an anti-tank guided missile being operated by Wagner somewhere in the vicinity of Bakhmut. I'm going to keep the music off. You heard what that sounded like. I did not fast forward this. That is a part of the original video. Here's the music, just for a second of it. Which is obviously copywritten. We're going to see another ATGM team here in just a minute. Actually, I'll roll that one right after this. You should get CivDiv back on, Ronnie. We'd be happy to have him. All right, I got another ATGM team. Very safe for work. Now, I'm gonna let you guys watch this one before I say anything, because video is never and will never be a great. It's better than nothing, but it won't ever be the best depiction of, a 3D environment. It's a two-dimensional space that we're viewing this in. But tell me if they hit anything. I don't have a great location for this one. I'm just rolling it because we just watched another ATGM team.
Так, Андрюх, готов? 82, выстрел.
For those that are going to have questions about, this versus TOW, very similar systems. They're each semi-automatic command line of sight systems, SACLOS, just different manufacturers, of course, one being Soviet-era manufactured, one being Western manufactured. And also the optical devices are obviously going to be different, as well as caliber. But from a guidance perspective, they're similar.
Малина, третий выстрел. Огонь!
Высаживаемся на Берлин. Хорошо, пошла.
So here's the thing. I don't know if you noticed that, but it seems to me as though whatever it was that they were shooting at was shooting back there at the end. I saw a question in the chat that I, you know, that was interesting. Somebody asked, and I didn't catch her name. Sorry. We're allowed to live stream war now. Yeah, we watched a live firefight at a nuclear plant here, coming up on a year ago, over a year ago at this point. We've been around since 2007. The company has, in various kind of forms, if you will. Started off as a YouTube channel, really just posting footage of our, you know, founding team members' deployment to Afghanistan, just trying to show his family what his patrols look like. And he realized at the time that there was this real desire to try and better understand what was happening on the ground, rather than what the news was telling you, rather than what, you know, your local crack dealer was telling you, politician was telling you. People wanted to just see raw footage. And that's where the mission of Funker530 was born. The balance and challenge for us throughout the life cycle of the company. We're no longer just a channel. We have an app on the web store, or on the app store, over 400,000 downloads now, by the way. We have a website that does 10 million page views a month. The challenge for us, though, is how do we continue to show this without normalizing it, without desensitizing it? And we don't really know the answer to that. All we can do is just try and make good decisions along the way. Let's pull out this next one here. This next one's another interesting one that I wanted to show. These are a little bit more high definition than some of the stuff we've received. What you're going to see here, unknown location inside of Ukraine, by the way. You're going to see a T-90 running dry on ammunition and deploying its countermeasures. Now, what's interesting is the lens that we get to view this in, which is obviously from a drone with the drone's heads-up display still on the screen. That video is coming up for you guys right now. This is a Russian T-90. Ruben, thanks very much for the 10. First time I've been able to catch a stream when it's actually live due to work. Huge thanks to you and the rest of the Funker team. And happy birthday. It's not my birthday, but thank you very much for the 10, sir. Nils, thank you very much for hitting the membership button. Question from Man of Great Wealth. How often are the live streams? Every Friday. Under most circumstances, yes. Every Friday, 6 o'clock. We used to do them daily. Then I wheeled them back to 3 times a week. And now we are doing them once a week. But I'm also uploading other footage and videos to YouTube as well. Edited, more deep dive breakdowns of individual clips. We just uploaded one on the attempted assassination of Japan's Prime Minister. I just got that through the review process today. Slim Pickens, thanks for the 2. Why don't we give them a couple AC-10s? You mean A-10s? Survivability of A-10s is an interesting topic. While it is essentially just a flying gun, there's those countermeasures. Let me shut up for a second. What always amazes me is just how much smoke is generated by those countermeasures. The drone's going to pan up here go real high after it cinematically drives through the smoke, of course. But it's going to turn and pan, and you're going to see just how much smoke is generated by not just the canisters, but you know, those T-Series tanks have the ability to use fuel. And so does the Abrams. A lot of people don't truly understand that the Abrams is a multi-fuel tank. And, you know, when it's operating off of gas or diesel, it does have the capability to generate smoke using that. But it also does use jet fuel, and you can't use jet fuel for that. I don't remember what I was talking about a moment ago. Getting old. So I've got another video of a T90 here. This is a T90 on the streets of Bakhmut, though. I'm kind of skipping around my list of videos here. Did anybody see the picture of the T90 that made its way to Louisiana? That was like a Louisiana truck stop T90, just on a flatbed. Anyway, here's this T90 in Bakhmut. The amount of smoke, right. Yeah, it just always amazes me how much smoke it can generate. Thanks for your work, man. I think the spirit of it is for the greater good. Do you get footage from Telegram, or are there other sources? Telegram is one of our primary sources. We catch... I'm going to put myself in the low right here. We catch a whole lot of shit for posting the same things that you'll find on, like, Reddit. That's because both Reddit and us have the same sources, which ultimately is Telegram. Telegram is probably the closest we get to the source without actually receiving it direct from those that are on ground, which there is a precedent for that. We do have a submission folder for situations like that. We also have folks that we've kept in contact with, especially in Ukraine, that do provide us footage. Telegram's just one of those, though. Sometimes there might be footage of things that are happening that we find on Twitter. Ultimately, our goal isn't to be the first to break a news story. We're not a news team. That's not the function and focus for us. You know, so when somebody comes at us, they're like, you guys are late to post this. Yeah, I get it. The goal for us is to document it, is to store it away in one place, not controlled by the Googles, the Facebooks, you know, the Amazons of the world. Our goal is to get that into one place that we know is there, that YouTube can't delete. YouTube flushed a very large amount of our footage that we had up from the Syrian civil war. You know, a lot of war documentarians will tell you that there was a time period, you know, around 2017 where just suddenly videos started vanishing from the platform. We understood then the necessity to double down. So it's our goal to get it documented, put in one place so that, you know where you can go and find footage of 9M22S being used, which are the incendiary magnesium-based that are often mistaken for phosphorus, where you can go and you can find situations of defending a trench or, you know, 152 millimeter Soviet artillery being used, 120 millimeter mortars. There's a place that you know that you can go and find it. All right, that again was a T-90 engaging Ukrainian positions in Bakhmut. Before I get it, we're going to be shifting into some footage that's coming out of Sudan here in a minute. But there's one more thing from Ukraine. This, you know, for a long time, some of the only footage we were covering was Ukraine just because of it from a saturation perspective in the information environment. That's what was available, you know, on social, on telegrams. That's all that was being shared. We're beginning to see those other conflict areas peek through. Such as Myanmar, such as the situation in Sudan, and we're going to cover that here in just a second. But I want to show you one more thing on Ukraine. And this one hasn't made its way necessarily to the website yet, but I was tagged in it on Twitter. And we haven't had a chance to talk about it or show it here. These are some of those reinforcements that a lot of folks are starting to talk about on the Ukrainian side ahead of whatever this next offensive or counteroffensive is. And this is just one of two videos that I have. Austin, thanks for the 5, sir. Need a haircut. I gotta get it tomorrow. It's a pretty large element there. I got one more to show you that provides even better perspective on that. Now we're starting to also see footage of training with some of those, Western weapon systems. I even tweeted out a photo of a paint job that a Bradley had received, and it was actually a pretty dope paint job, to be honest with you. It's pretty drippy. Check this perspective out. Now, where exactly this specifically is, I'm sure has been found out by now. It's not something that I, focus too heavily on. What the focus for me showing this to you guys is just the sheer amount of equipment and personnel that are amassing ahead of whatever it is that's coming next for Ukraine. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift into Sudan for just a few moments. The situation in Sudan kind of kicked off. For a little bit of background, I have a full edited video that's already scripted, that is filmed. I just haven't had a chance to edit it, largely because of what I mentioned when we started the stream. This week has been very heavy trying to get all my gear in order for my school that begins this weekend. But for those that aren't familiar with the situation in Sudan, in 2021, there was a coup that took place. And the Sudanese military and an organization known as the RSF, Rapid Support Forces, I want to say. I'd have to go back. They teamed up to essentially overthrow the government. Well, over the weekend, they picked a fight with each other. So we're going to see a series of footage coming out of Sudan's capital. The first we're going to see here is a top-down view of the Khartoum Airport, that being the capital, and some of the destruction that's already started to take place. And we're going to end up going down this, weird rabbit hole of, are these RSF or are these the Sudanese military? I don't know. In some cases, we do have an answer for that. In some cases, we don't. Here's some of that footage from the airfield now. Now, something that's relevant here is there are Ukrainian civilian aircraft on this airfield, supposedly. Reportedly. Do not take that to be fact. Research that on your own. That's my understanding. But some of the aircraft that were damaged included IL-76s. Got some more footage for you here from the airport. This is actually filmed by a Saudi, I want to say a Saudi pilot. Yeah, a Saudi pilot filmed this and posted it on Snapchat of the RSF attacking the Khartoum International Airport.
Where's the others? You should have gone. هم يطلقون على مين؟ ما ادري ماني شايفها. خلص airport security know it or not? Just inform
Now, for those that aren't familiar with the RSF, they essentially are born out of a group of folks that were known as the Janjaweed militias. The Janjaweed essentially got their, rose to power in the west of Sudan, where the Sudanese military and government didn't really have the capabilities to do what the Janjaweed did in the remote areas out there. So the Sudanese government and military relied very heavily on the Janjaweed to quell rebellion. And when it came time for that coup, the two factions that we see warring against each other here were actually a part of the same team. Some more footage or some first footage here. I haven't shown you this yet. The one thing that the RSF doesn't have is air power, but the Sudanese military does. So there's like this scream that they do that I don't mean to, I'm going to tell you anyway, that I can't now unhear, that Funker says reminds him of Xena, warrior princess. Anyway, the more, if you go to the website and search for Sudan or Khartoum, you'll end up hearing it quite a bit. Some more footage here of the Sudanese military hitting RSF positions. Someone said it's Sudanese for get some. Yeah, that seems to be the context that they use it in. So this is where we're going to start getting into that weird. I'm going to show you this footage, and I'd like you to guess whether or not whether RSF or Sudanese military we're looking at here. Video's coming up for you guys now. Also, there's an Easter egg in here of a beloved weapon system. I want to point that out to you guys. First, let me know, is that RSF or is that Sudanese military? The Easter egg is right here. It's an M14. That's what that is. That's the Sudanese military. Now for one from the RSF. Just to scratch that technical itch for you. More specifically, a rocket technical. All right, let's bring it up. So, there's quite a bit of footage, and like I said, I don't want to burn too much of that full edited video, because what I'll end up doing is breaking down those, a little bit of the coup, a little bit of the RSF from a leadership perspective, and I'm hoping to have that edited and posted for you guys by early next week. If the most recent week is any indication of a challenge that I'll run into, I'll have it uploaded. But YouTube might not let me launch it until later on in the week. I want to shift into Myanmar for a moment here. Something that's interesting in Myanmar is the proliferation of the use of the FGC-9, which is, it's got a following here in the United States, a 3D printed firearm. And we're going to see some footage. I don't know specific. The FGC-9 isn't going to be in these. But what's pertinent to point out about a piece of footage we're going to watch here in just a couple minutes is there is an overwhelming amount of very extremely young people using 3D printed firearms to fight back against their government. In Myanmar, or Burma, once again, in 2021, there was a coup with a military junta that took place, a military authoritarian power. And since then, rebels have been fighting back against that. This first video we're going to watch is a daisy-chained IED. More specifically, a daisy-chained IED that was set up by the Chin National Defense Force, which are, again, some of those anti-junta forces. The timing on it, well, you'll see. Did you run 5 miles today, Ronnie? No, I did not. Nope. Today was a rest day. All right. Let's come back up. I think you understand what I meant by timing on that one. The next one we're going to take a look at is actually on the opposite end of the normal spectrum that we see. You know, again, a lot of the footage that's coming from these anti-junta rebels, these Burmese rebels, is very, very makeshift weaponry. So in a relative sense, relative being the key word here, the element that we're going to watch, to a certain extent, is a bit more capable than what we're used to seeing. Relative is a word that matters. Words matter. Here you go. Josh, thanks for backing me up there, boss. All right, let's bring it up. Let's bring it up. I got one more video to show you guys. Speaking of young people, make note in comparison of the gear difference here. What you're going to see is the Youth Revolution Attack Force with a banger soundtrack, but more importantly, assaulting a military checkpoint barefoot. Pay close attention to the gear here. Lost. That guy lost his chunkler there. Oop. All right, let's bring it back up. What's the what our friends over at Combat Flip Flops? What's their saying? Bad for running, worse for fighting. Just saying. I got one more video before we get into our top 10 section. So the top 10 section is the most watched videos on our app and on our website over the last 7 days. But I've got one more video because historical footage is something that we're also pretty passionate about archiving and saving. And there is a really awesome historical video of a B-24 that gets hit either from below or from above. Now this one's had a string of controversy surrounding it. We're gonna watch it a few times here. I'm gonna ask you guys what you think, and then I'll give you the official narrative. Video's coming up for you guys right now. And just so you're wondering, this was over the Palau Islands. Is it Palau? Palau? I'm really good at pronouncing stuff, if you can't tell. All right, let's watch it again. Now, the controversy that's surrounding this is if you look very carefully, and we'll slow this down to half speed, you can see another B-24 Liberator is dropping its payload and it appears that payload is starting to get closer. Because of the way the wing folds that way, it was for a long time believed that there was a possibility that this was essentially friendly fire. But that's absolutely not the case. What this is anti-aircraft fire. And the stress on the wing from the lift is what causes it to fold upward. So as the aircraft is flying, lift is lifting up on that wing. And as that lift is lifting up, when that section of wing is compromised, causes the wing to go up. But there's your history video for the night. I need to pause for a second, turn the music back on, and check in on the support. Thanks for being here, guys. If you wouldn't mind tapping on the like button, it matters very much. And also, if you haven't, dropped a comment in the chat to let me know you're chiming in. Hello. Hi. Say hi to me. Or don't. That's fine. But you could. Be cooler if you did. Brian, thanks for the $10. Shane, thank you for the $10. Hey, Ronnie, what's up? So you're saying it's not your birthday? No, it's not. Well, happy birthday. Thank you. It's not my birthday. Once again, it's not. Sky, thank you for the $13.40. Thanks for all your good work, Funker team. Much love from Aussie land. Well, thanks very much from down under. You guys actually eat shrimp on the Barbie? Or is that like another one of those marketing things? Bob, thank you for the $2. Austin Pack, thank you for the $10. Double back again, thank you for the $2. Like the Wednesday live stream equals more, please. So we used to do it 3 times a week. There's a potential that I'll go back to 2 times a week. What we're trying to do is find that perfect balance. The live streams is really just a way for us to connect with you guys. Most of us have either other projects that we work on, not just the Funker530 work, but other functions within Funker530 that we fill as well. My job here is not necessarily the stream guy. I just happen to be the guy with the live stream capability. But we are looking at adding a day back. The official on that will come at a later date. BZ, thank you for the $5. Thanks for your work, man. The spirit of it is in the greater good. Already read that one, but I wanted to say thank you again for it. All right, let's jump into our top 10. Thanks for everybody for saying hi. I don't feel so alone talking to a camera. You know, it took me a long time to be able to have a conversation with a camera. I've been streaming now since 2018. I've only been doing the Funker work live for us since early last year. We were doing edited content on Funker here much earlier than that. But it's still kind of awkward sometimes having a conversation with a camera. Jumping into our top 10 on the website and app. Number 10 is going to be some more of that longer form, context-rich footage. This is door-to-door fighting from a Ukrainian perspective with about 20,000 views on the website in Bakhmut. Coming up for you guys now, I'm going to need to kill the music on this one. I'll play our own music here. Just not this music. Torek, I see your comment there. I'll address that in just a second. You're not wrong. All right, let's bring it back up. So I need to address a question that just came in from Torek. Torek sent in $5. Thanks very much for it, buddy. And he has a question about what's going on essentially in Sudan with the RSF/Janjaweed militias. And his question specifically was, I thought Janjaweed/RSF were part of the Sudan government, kinda. They mostly were used to commit genocide in Darfur. Yes. As I alluded to earlier, the Sudanese government didn't really have the capability and mobility to be effective in the West, more specifically Darfur. And again, like I said, I have a full video that was going to explain quite a bit of this. I just didn't want to burn it. But here we are. So the leadership of the RSF is very different. Mohammed Dagalo. Yeah, he goes by Hamedi. And that's what I refer to him as in the video. He essentially garnered a lot of wealth and fame out in the West. He was also party to some pretty heavy atrocities around about the 2004 timeframe, which once again, we're going to have a full deep dive and edited video on the situation that comes out early next week. But because the Sudanese government wasn't able to really be mobile and effective out in the West, they leveraged the Janjaweed, which grew into the RSF, which at its peak, if I understand correctly, had around 100,000 fighters to it. They leverage them as an arm, which makes it all the more interesting that they're now fighting each other. Now, it's essentially what has turned into a power struggle between two men. More to follow in that video. Thanks very much for it. I saw a question about my AR in the back. That is a Daniel Defense DDM4 SLW. That's my competition rifle. My favorites over there. But we can talk about that on the follow-up stream. Benedict Porkins, thanks very much for the 50. Solid, informative, and engaging. Keep it up. Thank you. Cyrillic language. I can barely speak English. But thank you very much for the 50. That's a lot of dollars. I appreciate it very much. What we just watched is number 10. That was Bakhmut door-to-door fighting from a Ukraine perspective. Here is one that we've already seen. When it comes to our top 10 footage, I don't pick and choose what we watch. I show you what's on the top 10 list. We've already seen this one, but this one comes out of Sudan. I'm going to show it to you again for those that weren't here when we covered this earlier. This is the Sudanese military. Their Air Force, more specifically, hitting RSF targets near Khartoum. All right, let's come back up. That's our number 9 most watched video on the app and website. That had about 22,000, and more specifically on the airframe there, that's a MiG-29. We're going to shift into Ukraine for number 8. We're going to see a tractor. Now, oftentimes when I bring up a tractor in the context of Ukraine, it's typically the Ukrainian 1st Farmers Brigade towing away their most recent trophy. At least from an information space perspective, that was a common thread, is seeing all these tractors towing away free tanks. And if I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me on this. At a certain point, something about not having to pay taxes, like property taxes, on some of these stolen tanks was a thing. Somebody help me out with that in the chat. What you're going to see here, though, is a Russian tractor getting hit by an FPV drone during a recovery operation. Coming up for you now. A recovery operation that appears to be recovering the mystery mobile. Zoinks. All right, let's bring it back up. That was number 8. The next one is one of those situations where, once again, we try to show you as much of the reality of war as possible. Sometimes it's somewhat humorous. You know, military humor has that dark feeling to it, which is ultimately a coping mechanism. So there are things that veterans are going to find humorous that others aren't. So when we say humorous, that's oftentimes what we're talking about. There are other times that it's just going to be plain old difficult to watch. This is one of those times. What you're going to see here is a Russian casualty collection point. A casualty collection point is essentially where you would move your casualties, you know, during any form of combat for eventual treatment or movement first, of course, and then treatment at a more capable medical center in the rear. We're going to see a Russian casualty collection point get hit by a drone-dropped grenade. Now, the first hip fire that most people throw out when they see things like this is something akin to war crime. In fact, it's not a war crime. It wouldn't be a war crime if it was done against Ukrainians. It's not a war crime that it's done against Russians. You do not stop being an enemy combatant when you're wounded. That's absolutely not the case. But here's the footage for you. It might be difficult to watch. Discretion's advised.
Yo, now!
All right, coming back up. That was number 7 on the app and website. That has about 26,000 views on it. Just going to check in on the chat after that one. Vozinator, thank you very much for becoming a member. Appreciate that very much. Brian, thanks for that $10. Not sure if I caught that one. Let me just go ahead and check all of these off. Yes, do it. Okay. Totally unlucky place to be on a stretcher. Well, what you're really looking at here is that novelty of drones now, right? Where in normal circumstances, your casualty collection point is typically in a more, not always going to be, secure location to the rear, where you're going to have some semblance of safety to treat, to prepare for movement elsewhere. With the advent or novelty that we see drones, I shouldn't say advent of drones because drones have been used for a long time. And in fact, this tactic, this technique is not novel itself. Their proliferation is the novelty. Their use as a forward observer is a novelty. But with the proliferation of drones, that 1 to 2 mile space, that gray area on the forward line of troops, there is no safe space for you. That becomes especially pertinent when you start to talk about trench warfare. A lot of correlations get drawn between World War I and what's happening in Ukraine right now. It's very different because you now have FPV drones that you can fly into a man's nose hair. Precision weaponry, glide bombs, HIMARS that have 5-meter circular error probable for accuracy, CEP. 50% of every round that's fired from a HIMARS is gonna hit inside of a 5-meter circle where you choose it to. When you start to couple trench warfare being stuck in one spot with the precision accuracy of modern munitions, you get what you have here. Let's move on though. Number 6. This is an interesting one to watch. What you're going to see here is a Russian unbuttoned in a vehicle, a BMP specifically, and they're essentially going to record themselves hitting an anti-tank mine. Coming up now.
Никого не зарехсотило. Все целое. Просто ебаный. Ты чё? Нормально. Чё, контузил? Ебать. Уходим оттуда, уходим. Пошли. Автомат забери. Автомат, вон. Где он? Все, пизда. Телефон чей?
Ronnie, where do you get Russian videos? Telegram. Telegram is one of our sources for videos, yes. We find it all over the place, though. Again, our goal is not necessarily to get it posted first, but to document it. Cull, no, I haven't seen that. Feel free to tag me on it if it's somewhere on Twitter. So we're still watching this because as an eventuality, he goes back to you know, assess some of the damage. I did see that one, Fog Hail. Sure did. From the Fab 1500.
Пошли заберем. Чей калаш остался? Я скажу, заберу. Чей телефон? Телефон мой. Пиздец, короче, Бэхи на мину налетел. Все живые, слава богу. Вот так жестко. Офигели все.
DJ Drek, I'll field that one. I'll field that one in just a second as soon as this video is done. There's actually a very good reason. So if you missed DJ Drek's question, he says, why the fuck would somebody wear high-vis colored tape on their gear? Even on back, the risk of being more easily spotted by enemy equals huge. One of the challenges that's somewhat unique to the war in Ukraine is that each element is essentially operating off of the same gear, right? So what you end up with is these two near-peer adversaries fighting against each other in almost the same equipment. And what you need is positive identification of friend or foe. Therein lies the tape. Both Russia and Ukraine recognized the necessity of identification markings when it came to identifying whether or not you're shooting at Russians or Ukrainians. So you'll see blue, yellow, green on the Ukrainian side, and under a majority of circumstances, red and white. There's even some really viral footage that has come out before that actually examines that or talks about that. CivDiv released it, and we've covered it here. We talked about this footage with CivDiv, where a Foreign Legion element is having to double down and remind, not only with that IFF type tape, but reminding those other elements, do not shoot me. Fratricide. That's what that ultimately defends against. And the risks associated with fratricide outweigh the small possibility that at under normal engagement distances, 300-400 meters, that the glint will catch that tape at just the right way. All right, let's move on. This was an interesting one. Got another FPV drone here. But what's interesting about this FPV drone is its armament, in my mind. We're going to see a drone fly directly into a tank. Now, when you see these small FPV drones, what you think to yourself is, I don't know, small payload. Ukraine's been using it to drop F1 grenades, you know, VOG grenades, or RGDs even. This one's got a bit different of a payload and was actually probably pretty effective. I'll show you why. Let's wheel that back. That's an RG7. Now, it's important to, a lot of people will make a comment that says something akin to, give me 1 second, I'll put myself in the low left here. Something akin to, well, it kept moving, you know, that means it wasn't effective. Well, you can damage a lot of those exterior components to a tank. It's still combat effective, but over time, the more of those hits, the more possibility you're going to end up taking it off the battlefield, if not from a mobility kill, but for other reasons, maintenance, repair, etc. All right, let's bring it up. We're going to start to move a little bit here. This next one's, once again, one of those pieces of footage that's always the balance, showing war, helping people understand the reality of it, while trying to find a way not to normalize it. So what I'll say ahead of this, and there's no real way to do that except kind of remind you that it's war. Bad things happen in war. This one's not safe for work. Discretion is advised, but what you're going to see is a exposed Russian element getting hit, once again, more drones by a drone. This time over thermal, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, over thermal. All right, coming back up. T-Morts, thanks for the 5. Russians seem to bail on their comrades a lot. Am I wrong? Yes and no. I mean, I've seen footage of all kinds of that, right? I actually did a full edited video breakdown of footage of Russians tying a noose. I shouldn't say a noose, but it effectively was. They tied a rope around a guy just to recover him from the battlefield, right? So there is absolutely footage of Russians kind of, I've seen Russians dropping a stretcher and running away from folks. But I've also seen footage on the opposite spectrum of that, right? Again, that full edited breakdown of the recovery of a wounded Russian. So what you'll end up finding a lot on social media are going to always be the extremes, in my opinion. Whether it be politics or war, you'll find that you're looking at the far edge of what's truly taking place on the ground. And the same would apply here for war, right? There are a host of things that are happening on the ground every day that we will never have the insight into because, again, we're really only going to catch the things, we as a society, not necessarily we as a team, we're really only going to catch those things that hit the news, that hit the viral algorithm on Twitter or YouTube. Those things that are shocking or cause you to hit the share button, if you will. Your everyday mundane footage of Ukrainians smoking and joking around a fire, which could be 90% of the time that they're spending on the forward line. You're not going to see. All right, let's move on. Number 3. This is an interesting one, and it's actually a testament to some of the chaos, to when you think you're safe or when you think I'm in cover right now. Difference between cover and concealment. I'm in cover right now. I'm fine. Well, that's not always the case. A Russian's going to take a round to the helmet in this one. He survives, but he's pretty lucky.
Счастливый человек под фонарь. Давай, ходи. Живой? Не, братан. Работает снайпер! Снайпер работает!
Comparing the cornet to the javelin is not even close. Don't do that. No, that one's a joke. That's funny. So again, that was number 3. I want to show you guys the impact here one more time. I tried uploading this to YouTube, by the way. I did. I uploaded it to YouTube, and YouTube was like, no. You can't do that. I'm going to put it down to quarter speed. So, I want to point something out that I didn't mention. I alluded to it, but I didn't mention it. This round comes through this wall. Let's bring it up. That was our number 3 most watched video on the app and website. Our number 2 most watched video. You got 2 options for this one. We can either watch the raw footage or we can watch my 2-minute breakdown of this footage that I just released earlier today. I'm going to check in on the support. You guys let me know which one of those versions you want to watch. I'm gonna turn the music on. Timor, thanks again for that 335. Vozinator, thanks again for becoming a member. We appreciate that very much. We're a small team, and, you know, that kind of generosity is huge for us. Thank you for it. Benedict, thank you again for the 50. That's huge. Thank you so much for that. Torek, thanks for the 5 and for the question. That's a good question. Brian, thank you for the $10. Shane, thank you for the $10. And Sly, thank you for the $10. 2-minute breakdown. You want to see the breakdown of it? Okay. I got to head out to the Funker530 YouTube. Stand by. Love this one. All right, here we go. Coming up for you guys now. So before I dive down into this is what has now taken place of we used to do a lot more of these. Then we shifted to a full live model, and now we are shifting back to doing these deeper dive videos. In some cases, they're still only going to be a couple minutes long, but the research that goes into them, the editing, etc. Anyway, here it is. What you're going to see is a bit of a breakdown on the assassination attempt using 2 pipe bombs of Japan's prime minister. There's an error that I made in this. I'll talk about it in a second. Social media of an attempted and thwarted assassination attempt of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Now, during the video, we see one of his close proximity team members swatting away an explosive device that would detonate a few short moments later before deploying what appears to be a protective shield from a briefcase. Now, the absolute testicular fortitude of this man playing hot potato with that explosive cannot be ignored. Let's examine the video and the incident a little bit closer. Kishida was visiting a port in western Japan to support his ruling Liberal Democratic Party's candidate in a local election. Now, the device, which was thrown from the back of the crowd, hits the ground, but doesn't explode immediately. Now, his security detail swats and kicks the device out of the way before deploying a hidden shield that appears undeployed as a briefcase. Footage of the aftermath shows Japanese officials detaining a suspect, named later as Ryuji Kimura, aged 24, just as the device explodes. Nobody was hurt in the incident either, at least not as far as I could tell and as of the time of this recording. Something important to note for those that aren't familiar is this is less than a year after the country's former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was shot and killed while making a campaign speech. Abe was Japan's longest-serving prime minister. He held the role from 2006 to 2007 and again from 2012 to when he was killed in 2020. An investigation into that incident revealed serious flaws in Abe's security detail, which appear to have been rectified, because a dude literally kicked a bomb out of the way and deployed a go-go gadget ballistic shield from a briefcase to protect Kishida. Now, this is a short episode, but before I go, I'd like to remind those in the US that tending to your weeds has never been easier than with exothermic technologies. Yeah, you can own one, and no, you can't have mine. The Pulsefire and Pulsefire UBF are each just as fun as they look. And they also have actual use in a homestead. Like, seriously, this thing is very effective. They both run off regular old gasoline, have multiple redundant safeties, and you guys can use code ACC20 right here on the screen for 20% off of any accessories that you want. What's interesting is that these are no different than those standard propane torches that are out there, but they look a little bit scarier, so people get all up in arms about them. Weird. Short episode. That's it for this one. Hit the like, sub, bell. Stay informed.
You're not allowed to own a machine gun. You're not allowed to own a flamethrower. I'm a Second Amendment guy.
All right, so that's the breakdown, and the reason I asked if you guys wanted to see that is I told you when we shifted off of the full three times a week live stream that there was going to be a more edited element added to the channel, something that we're going to shift back to because I think it gives us the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper down into specific situations, pieces of footage, incidents. And I also wanted to, show you the flamethrower as well. But I do want to show you the raw footage there. That way you get just another chance to see that absolute Chad of a close protection detail guy kicking that explosive device away from his prime minister. Look at this. Now, one of the comments that I saw on the edited version that we just watched was, why didn't he cover the device with that protective shield? Well, what you have to realize, such as the close-up that I showed, is there's always the possibility of something following, of some form of second attack of some kind, which absolutely would have been a concern had that shield, which presumably has ballistic, maybe fireproof properties to it, had that been compromised by the device. You then don't have that for whatever follows. Your primary concern is your principal. All right, let's bring it up. That was number 2 on the app and website. That video has over 40,000 views. This next one, we're not going to watch all of, but what I am going to do is give you guys the link to it because it's our last video of the night. And it's about 10 minutes long. Okay? And we're already over when we were supposed to end the stream anyway. We've just been having a good time chatting, hanging out together. The next video is 10 minutes of brutal warfare, trench warfare. I'm going to give you guys a link to this one. You're welcome to jump over to the website. But that's going to end up being it for me tonight. Here's your link for our #1 most watched video on the app and website. Go check it out. Jump into the comments. It's a custom-built comment system that's down there. We're very proud of it. We try not to be reliant on third parties, things like apps and widgets that are developed by somebody else. We try to develop as much as possible for our website entirely in-house. So jump into the comments. Download the app if you don't have it. I'm going to kill this stream here. I'm going to jump over to the other stream, and it's automatically going to redirect you if you want to follow over. And we're going to kick back, maybe have a beer, try to raise some money for veterans, but we could talk more about that and any questions you guys might have when we get there. Thanks for being here once again. I do appreciate you. Jones, thanks for the 2 months. MT, thank you for the 546. And thank you. Good night and stay informed.
What if the dam breaks? But if